I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money, and this is Filmmakers On. Today, I'm talking to Linda Nelson. She's the CEO and founder of Indie Rights, an independent film distribution company. We talk about film deliverables and what goes into a good poster and trailer, what Indie Rights is doing to seek out new opportunities for its documentary filmmakers now that Amazon has shut them out. We also talk about the current best performing streaming platforms, some of Indie Rights' better successes over the past year, windowing, and foreign distribution. This is a jam-packed conversation. Let's do the interview thing. All right. So we're on the record now.
Always happy to share with you and your tribe. You have a lot of really great followers that really look to you for good advice. So happy to be here.
Well, thank you. And in that vein, let's start out. And I wanted to talk a little bit about deliverables with you, especially posters and like the difference between like a theatrical and a DVD.
It's very interesting. If you are with a distributor that is going to be selling your film all rights to all territories, then it's a really good idea to think about having two totally distinct posters. And that's what we're recommending to our filmmakers now. Usually when filmmakers are going to film festivals, they'll create a poster that's very, appropriate for a festival to be on a big easel, in standard posters, theatrical size, like 24 by 36 or 27 by 40 inches. And that's usually composed of various background images and credits, a credit block on the bottom that talks about the cast and crew, and log lines, and maybe laurels from various festivals that you previously attended. And so that's typical for a theatrical poster. And you can really have a lot of small details on a theatrical poster because people are walking up to it and looking at it at very close range, and it's large. We like to have that because when we go to market a film at one of the film markets like Cannes or MIP or AFM, we create advertising and catalogs that have fairly large images in them. Mm-hmm. And so we like to use those theatrical posters, one, because they look very professional, and two, they look like a theatrical poster. So there is somewhat of an assumption made on the buyers that are looking at the film. Well, maybe this has been in a theater or it's played at festivals. And so they have a little more respect for it than they would if we simply use the VOD poster. Mm. Now, the VOD poster has to look very, very different. Most platforms will require that a lot of the extraneous information is stripped off. They don't care who the cast and crew is, so they don't want the credits on there. A lot of them won't even, allow you to put laurels on the VOD poster. So those get stripped off. And even oftentimes kind of a log line or maybe a film by with the director's name. But most of the time, or even actors' names. So most of the time for VOD, you want a large, strong image and very bright, prominent title art. And this is really important because when people are at home and they are sitting on their couch and they've got a remote control in their hand and they're just pushing that arrow button to the right, the posters are just flying by. And they're just looking for something that's going to catch their eyes.
Right. And I think it's also important to remember that people are looking at these in basically thumbnail form, like side by side by side. So like mm-hmm. they're not particularly big. So like if you have a one sheet that has all these, small details, or, say you have 10 main characters on it and they're all little tiny, it's not going to play.
It doesn't play at all. And that's a very good way to test. If you take, even on your computer screen, if you pull up like Amazon Prime or something, and you see the posters, and just if you do a screen grab of that and then you stick your poster next to it, and you can almost kind of gauge what does yours look like in comparison to the others. It's a really nice way to kind of get a feel for it, because, and even on a phone, if you take your phone and you see like 20 posters on the screen, they're itsy bitsy little things, and you can screen grab those and get an idea, of what yours looks like in comparison with others. And, and you can see even classic, big, huge classic star-driven movies, what the studios have done to those posters.
Yeah, they look nothing like the original posters. And I think that's the problem most independent filmmakers get into, just in general, is like we're always looking at these big like studio pictures and what, we saw as kids going to the movie theaters. And that is just not what a VOD poster is. That's not what VOD advertising is.
No. And the actual title text, the font that you pick, is also very important. I've seen we have gotten a lot of posters recently with this pencil thin lettering, which is kind of cool when you look at it on a big poster and it's nice and elegant looking, but it's unreadable when you have a small poster. The other thing that's popular right now is to use very muted colors, and, like the opacity is turned way down, and all those things make it hard to read. You want the title of the film to really stick out. Font for the title art is really, really important. And these are things that you need to think of very early on before you edit your film, because your title art should match your title credits inside.
Right, because you're creating a branding between.
Right, exactly. So all three of those things are something that you really want to consider in the early planning, stages of your movie. So by the time you get to post, you should know what your title art and your poster are going to look like.
And that's a good point. I'm actually feeling kind of bad right now, because it's almost always the last thing I do. And
exactly.
I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm like, that makes total sense. Why am I not doing that? Yeah. And
it's also good to do it because you can start to, get the word out there on your film. Like we tell people, start your Facebook page the second you have a script. Like you can put the title page of your script up as the profile image of your movie when you start, even if it just sits there and you don't do much. Although it's nice to show progress of, your film.
Yeah.
It used to be that everything was hush, hush and secret, and never let the trailer out.
Right.
Don't hide this, hide that, but that's not what you want to do these days, especially when we don't have big advertising budgets and we're not going to have billboards and, big print ads and press junkets to the TV shows and stuff. So,
mystery box stuff definitely does not work for independent film anymore.
No.
So let's talk for just a second about trailers. Like, what do filmmakers need to include or not include in these trailers? Like, what's a good length?
Okay, first of all, most of the platforms want a trailer that's 2 minutes or under. A lot of people still will send us a trailer, even though in our specs we say keep it under 2 minutes. We'll still get one that's 3 minutes, and they'll say, oh, that's all right. This is really what we want. And I'm like, okay, so are you going to be happy when they truncate it? And your best stuff is at the end? No. So you really want to keep it 2 minutes and under.
I would even say even shorter, right? Like I usually tell people 90 myself.
90 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's fine. We actually suggest that you have multiple trailers. There's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, the digital platforms have to have a G-rated trailer.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many trailers we get that still have extreme violence or sex in them, or profanity. And they're like, oh, but that's or drugs, you know, and they're like, but that's what our movie is about, drugs. And I say, you got to have some conversation in there, something, you cannot have drugs, profanity, sex, extreme violence. You can't show someone getting their throat slit or someone pointing a gun at someone's head. Those things are no for the platform trailer. So again, this is a situation where you should have two things. Now, sometimes, one works for both things. If you don't have a lot of gore or a lot of violence or a lot of sex, then you might have one trailer that you use for promotion as well as for the platforms.
Right.
But
if it's a family film.
Most indie films have an edge to them. Most of them do, unless they're children's films. So you are going to have to be quite careful, about what you put in there. Now, there's also, and this is true for the feature too. All your videos need to start with a few frames of black. Yep. You cannot start with an active video screen.
Yeah.
Because that black is what the systems detect as the beginning. So there has to be a few frames of black in the beginning.
Yep.
There has to be a few frames of black at the end. But you cannot have more than 2 seconds.
And that's both the trailer and the film itself.
Both the trailer and the feature. So you make sure you limit it. It's 2 or 3 frames is really all you need, although you can have a second, which is 24 frames. That's a lot. So just make sure that you don't exceed that 2 seconds or your film will fail QC.
Yeah.
Platforms don't want to be storing black frames. We get films, sometimes they get 10, 12 seconds of black in the front. And maybe it's because it used to have color bars and tones, which was required for broadcast.
Yeah, my first couple of titles that I delivered for VOD, I had that learning curve because I was used to doing, you would do like 5 or 10 seconds of black, and then you would do color bars, then you would do like another 5 or 10 seconds of black, and then tone, and then it would come in, But but back to the trailer and talking about that again, it is also really important that you don't put any FBI warnings on it. No cards, no end cards. Like, we get so many trailers coming soon
that have coming soon on the end. Well, if you start posting a trailer that says coming soon after you're out, nobody's, people are going to think it's not out yet. So, and you don't even, some other people will say, put the date. They'll say, coming to iTunes on April 30th. No dates, no end cards at all, right? So you don't want to say coming soon. You cannot put any URLs or handles or websites on the back, in your credits or on the back end of the film. No one will allow that.
Right. So, and it's also with the features themselves.
Oh yes. Same for the features. Yeah. No FBI warnings.
Yeah, because I've been making a lot of documentaries, and I've talked to a couple other filmmakers, and they're like, well, sometimes creatively, like, I need to throw like a URL or something in there, and I'm like, well, if you're going to VOD like that, it's not going to fly. Right,
and again, these are things that you want to keep in mind while you're in development and pre-production, because oftentimes people, music or talent will say, oh, you have to put my website in there. And filmmakers agree to it only to find out later when they go to get distribution that they can't. Yeah. And then they got to go back and say, oh, sorry, Yep. And sometimes people, barter that in exchange for getting paid. So you need to know upfront, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't offer that, because it's going to hurt you when you go to get your distribution. Those are really important things to think about early on in the planning stages.
So when it comes to a VOD distribution, are there content restrictions like involving sex or violence or any of that?
Yes, there really are. When your content is going on an AVOD platform, you have to kind of keep in mind that you want to have your film available to have as much ad placement as possible.
Right.
Okay.
And when we're talking about AVOD, guys, we're talking about ad video on demand, like it's
ad supported.
Tubi TV, IMDB TV,
Pluto TV, the Roku channel, Crackle,
right?
All of those.
Yeah. Sorry.
Peacock.
Continue. Yeah, Peacock.
Hulu. All of those channels pay you and make their money because they have advertisers placing ads on your content. Now, if you have a movie that's terribly explicit sexually, who's going to put a toothpaste ad or whatever on there, or, diapers, or even cars? I mean, just advertisers, are very conscious of the content that their ads are placed on. So we just got a terrific film. But it's just way too explicit, and and it's about a hotel and the rooms in the hotel and what's going on in the motel and what's going on in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't expecting it to be quite as explicit. We probably are going to have to return the film back to them.
That's too bad.
Just because if we were only putting it on paid transactional, that's another story.
Right.
You could, but I'm sure they want more than that for their film. And the direction the industry is going is AVOD. And so if you want the widest distribution for your film, you want to be careful about the edginess of it. And while it's unfair, studios can sometimes get away with some full frontal nudity. Yep. I mean, if you look at Get Shorty, it's streaming.
Oh yeah.
Right. There's studio material that does have explicit stuff on it. They just won't tolerate it from indies.
Yeah.
It just we've gotten several warnings from Amazon saying this is too explicit. We can't put this on Prime. Sometimes they'll say we'll take it for paid transactional, but can't go on SVOD. And then the AVOD ones, forget it.
That's a really interesting point too, because back in the day, like when I started out, before streaming was a thing, it seemed like one of the most sellable elements of an independent film was its edginess, was pushing the envelope, having extra sex, extra violence, whatever it is, But it's like that's totally reversed now, and like as independent filmmakers, we almost, if we want to get a wide release, we can't think of it in terms of, pushing the edge or, giving the audience something that they can't get with the big budget stuff. We have to actually be more careful. Yeah.
We have to think more like movies like Psycho, where, there's implied, violence or implied sex, and try to handle it that way. And, so I think a lot of times indie filmmakers are very guilty of, pushing the envelope, trying to push the envelope a little too far.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sucks, but that's the world we're living in.
It is. And, so the goal is maybe for some filmmakers to one day be able to make whatever movie they want.
Right.
But, but that's, I think for when you're starting out, you have to make movies that have a good chance of getting good exposure.
Yeah. And I think filmmakers need to realize too, it doesn't matter, how big you get, there's always concessions like that to make. There's, there's $100 million directors that are out there, that can't get their vision across, they can't do what they want to do. You're always, whoever's paying for it, they're always calling the shots.
You're not going to see Chris Hemsworth or Thor having explicit sex. Right? No, ain't gonna happen.
You're not
as much as people would like to.
Right. I'd pay for that. Speaking of sucky things, in regards to Amazon's decision not to take documentary or short films anymore, and I'm more thinking about the documentary feature side. What are some things that like companies like yours, like what are you doing to, I know you can't work around it, but I mean, what are you doing how are you pivoting from that?
Well, the attitude we've taken is that we are going to keep submitting good docs. We're pretty careful about the docs that we take.
Okay.
Our standards are pretty high. And we've had a lot of really successful docs on Amazon. So our policy right now is to continue to submit them and have them in their system and keep our fingers crossed that at some point they will start either curating or reviewing docs, and especially from partners that they have had good experience with docs for. So
Right.
we are going to pretend that they're still taking them,
Right.
and hope that policy will change, either for their studio partners or just in general, that they will start to curate and take curations of docs. Then what we are doing is exploring a lot of new outlets for docs. So it used to be that Tubi didn't take many docs, but now they take all our docs. So Tubi is a great alternative. Google Play and YouTube Movies are still taking all of our docs. I don't know how much you're aware of it, but now there are Google ad-supported movies, official Google ad-supported movies. Yes, there are. And so we are just finished negotiating a contract to supply content to Google ad support. And
that's wonderful.
You'll check it out. If you look now, you'll see free with ads on Google Play.
I had no clue, although it makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of companies are pivoting into AVOD.
And then also, I believe that at like MIP and Cannes, that there's more of an appetite for docs. That appetite has been growing. So MIP is starting in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so we have about 20 meetings with foreign buyers that are very interested in docs.
Oh, that's great.
So we're going to make sure that, we expose, we picked like 10 of our top docs that we're going to be, trying to establish relationships. In the past, we focused only on like feature films at the markets. And so we never really built relationships with doc buyers, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so we just signed a terrific one that was at Slam Dance, won all kinds of awards. So we, decided to take it. And so that's one of the ones that we're going to really try to use to establish, some really good doc relationships with. And so, we have to adjust as the business changes and companies change what they want to do, then we have to be flexible and adaptable and try to, go with the flow and change how we approach.
I think that's a really important point for filmmakers to hear and listen to, is that like this thing with Amazon and, not taking docs, it's nothing new. Companies change policies, they change tax all the time.
Sure.
We dealt with the same thing with physical media, 3 or 4 years ago when that started going away. Like you have to constantly adapt. As an independent filmmaker, if you are not always looking ahead, looking at what's coming next, looking how to pivot, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. What's working today may or may not be working tomorrow.
Right. And that's an interesting point to talk about too. The whole concept of Amazon's media on demand is shutting down.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we had over 100 of our older films on there. Yeah. And, we don't make a huge amount of money, but there's good incremental income for quite a few of our films there. Mm-hmm. And so we stopped putting new ones on there probably, I think, about 2 years ago when we started doing DVD and Blu-ray through Allied Vaughn.
Right.
When we got to notice what we were able to do, and this was terrific, is that they gave us the ability to download those files, and then we just turned those files over to Allied Vaughn, so they're going to pick up all those titles. So So that was a really good alternative. So that's, I don't know if Allied One deals with people one-on-one, but, for people that have a certain number of films and they were on the Amazon Media on Demand, that's an option.
Right.
So it might be worth looking into for people.
So can filmmakers take advantage of windowing through indie rights?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not that we don't like windowing, and we do windowing.
Mm-hmm.
We really do look at every film individually,
right?
And decide, what we think is the best path for that film. If someone comes to us and they've been on the festival circuit for a year and a half, and they've built up this enormous email list and feel like they have this big waiting audience, then we will definitely do a TVOD window first.
Yeah.
And I would say probably 75% of the time we will do a TVOD window first. What is good about Amazon for us is that we do see the sales, for TVOD on a daily basis.
Right.
Right. So we are actually seeing if it's selling or people are buying or selling it. So we can tell right away. What we can't see is what you're going to make on Prime. We can only see minutes watched.
Right.
But for actual purchases and rentals, we can see that. So we watch for 2 or 3 weeks. And if there's no sales or rentals, we turn on Prime.
I was going to say, I know this from experience, guys, because I have 4 titles with indie rights right now, and every single one, they started on TVOD, and then, say a week or 2 into it, or whenever, or sooner sometimes, because I've had a few that didn't sell on TVOD at all. And, I'll get a message and say, hey, it's not really selling. Do you want to go ahead and move to Prime? And I would say more times than not, it's the right move.
Yes, it is. Unless you've got a big waiting audience, you might as well put it on both, right. To start. And then just because we can get it on Amazon so fast. Normally we can get something up on Amazon in 2 days.
Right.
It's nice to get it out there as soon as possible. So we start with that. Then, and also you want to devote a little time to getting reviews for Amazon, because it's really, really important that up front, while you're in the new release cycle, that 30-day new release, that you get reviews on there to start, to see if you can get some CER going.
Yeah.
And then we start to add other channels. We'll put Google Play and YouTube Movies, and then Tubi, and those take 30 to 45 days to get those up and running. And we like the idea of spreading things out a bit because it gives you a chance to have some news, right? The old way used to be, okay, we're going to give you a release date. It's 4 months from now, and you'll come out on all these channels at once, right?
Right.
Well, then what do you do after that release date? Like you can only talk about it so much, but if you spread them out, then you can say, oh, now we're on Tubi. Oh, now we're on Pluto. And the next month, oh, now we're on Crackle. And it gives you something to talk about, something to promote. So we kind of like that idea of spreading it out,
right.
Or, if we go to a market and there's a sale and they can announce a sale. So it's kind of nice, because at least by the end of 5 or 6 months, you've got pretty broad exposure, and should have some organic reach going on by that point. But if all of a sudden it's all out at once the first week, then you really don't have much to talk about. And so then people get bored, of trying to say, oh, watch my movie.
Right. I mean, you have to keep coming up with new material and new ways to push your film, so you're not doing the same old posts over and over. And it's just one more new thing to talk about.
Yeah, and as we do the same thing. That's why we say you don't wait for a couple of months to come out with your DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And that's another thing you can talk about.
Right. So like in general, because like this is something I've been trying to figure out for my own stuff. Like, do you think it's generally better to start out, VOD like transactional and then, move to subscription and then do physical, or start with physical and then move into VOD?
I think it's better to get established. Because if there's a lot out there, say especially if you have a genre film, which is the most popular format, for physical media, it's most popular. I think you're better off to have a lot of stuff out there first, and then the people that like to collect physical media, then they'll have an image in their brain, and then they'll go out and get it.
I gotcha.
I think it's tough to start with DVD or Blu-ray.
Right.
And you're going to get most of the people that are streaming, right, are on the coasts, the East Coast and the West Coast. It's the middle of the country that doesn't have the best internet and tends to do physical media, but if you can build up a lot of hype about your movie, with streaming first, then I think if it shows up, on Redbox or, on online retail stores as physical media, you're more apt to get some sales.
We've all heard, all the, horror stories about, filmmakers just, putting their heart and souls into these movies and, not making any money, without giving away, proprietary information or, naming the films. What are some success stories you've had in the last year?
We've had a number that have done well over $100,000. We have a female-driven crime film that did $100,000 the first quarter it was out. So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Then we have a documentary about eating healthy fats called Fat Fiction.
Yep.
Done extremely well. It did, I think it did about $30,000 in paid transactional when it first came out.
Wow.
So I mean, and it's done very well over the course of the past year. Yeah. And food is something that there's quite a bit of interest in. The filmmaker is extremely proactive with her social media marketing. Yep. We have seen success with every kind of film. We have a kids film called 12, a little baseball movie that's done exceedingly well. So, and everything in between. So, I mean, we've had a success in every genre. So when people say, well, what about films similar to mine? Can you give me a projection, what you think it will make? And I always say no, because one, I don't know you. You may give me your film and walk away and never do anything, and your film is not going to do well. Yeah. It at least takes a team effort.
Yep.
We promote, but we can only echo and amplify what you do. And if you do nothing, then we don't have much to work with, so we can't do all your marketing, and we're trying to help a lot of people, not just one individual filmmaker. So
I think a lot of filmmakers are really stuck in the, the old way of thinking is like you give your movie to a distributor and you're done, and honestly, I don't think that ever really was the case. I think people are, they're looking at the studio system or how these really big, but as far as independent films, it's always been the filmmakers. It's always been the production companies out there pushing the movies, advertising the movies, getting the promo. Unless you're in the studio system, that apparatus isn't there for you.
We actually just got the results of a new outlet that has really surprised us. We have done a partnership with a site called Kings of Horror. Kings of Horror is a monetized YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. I heard something about that. Okay.
And we had a film do $3,000 on that channel this month.
Wow.
That's
great.
Small horror film.
That probably wasn't making too much anywhere else.
No, I mean, it did when it first came out, but it was kind of petering out a little bit, and the filmmakers are a little tired of it. And so just as an experiment, we'd been talking, this channel had been talking to us for a very long time, you know, saying, oh, just give us a couple to start. You'll be surprised, you know, how well it might do. And sure enough, you never know where you're going to breathe life into, you know, a film. Right. So we're going to now do more. Going to be where we'll add films to that after they've kind of done a run for a while, maybe after they've been out for a year.
Right.
On premium channels.
Yeah.
You know, so it's amazing. I mean, we were quite shocked, but the channel has a couple million subscribers. Right. So, you know, and it is genre films. So I'm now thinking I need to look for some other channels like that.
Yeah, well, I know.
Kinds of films.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you like seeking out other YouTube channels that have, you know, larger subscriber counts? Yeah. I think that is going to be a major future revenue source for a lot of films as it grows.
Well, the reason we kind of decided to give it a try was that we watch more YouTube in the evenings, you know, than movies.
Yep.
Right. It's amazing. I mean, I don't care whether we're like thinking about buying you know, like a vacation home in France. So we're watching these YouTube videos about French chateaus or whatever, but or we're into racing cars and Formula One. So we watch that. So, I mean, it's amazing. People watch YouTube the way we used to watch television.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's pretty amazing.
There's opportunity there that maybe we weren't thinking about so much, you know, before.
Yeah.
And we have a YouTube channel, but we're lucky if we have 10,000 subscribers. So we get that kind of exposure, but
yeah, it takes a long time to grow.
Right, exactly. And they've been growing that channel for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they're also uber specific, you know, it's genre, right. It's mostly horror stuff. I mean, you guys are a larger distributor. You have whatever 2,000 titles in all different genres that actually, so I have a secondary YouTube channel just for my documentary stuff. And, you know, I put up, you know, 5 to 6 minute clips from the movies. You know, I saw actually another filmmaker that works with you guys does this very successfully. So I was like, I'm gonna copy that, try to do that. So I'm doing it.
You mean like Al?
Yeah, that's exactly who I was talking about. Al Prophet. Yeah. The thing about his channel is, you know, he is making a specific genre of documentaries. You know, he's doing the crime stuff, drug stuff. It's you know, so the audience is the same, but me as a documentary filmmaker, I'm making alien stuff and Bigfoot stuff and fighting stuff and dog rescue stuff. And it doesn't mix together in a single YouTube channel. So that's why I've had problems with it. But I can see if you get specific with it, you can really grow a channel there.
Yeah.
Seems, and this is just from my limited perspective, but it seems like with the exception of like, say, Amazon, rest of the world, that there's not a lot of foreign distribution options when it comes to streaming distribution. Is that a fair assessment or
what's happening now with the market is that the streamers in the foreign territories are showing up looking for content. Whereas before, most of the buyers were looking for all rights deals and theatrical, which really there was not much opportunity for U.S. Low budget indies to get theatrical and foreign. I mean, France, you know, or Germany or the UK or Japan, they're not going to buy some really ultra low budget U.S. indie, small indies. They just, you know, because they're used to doing these all rights deals for theatrical and broadcast and that. But now every country has developed streaming platforms, right? And so those streamers are now, their acquisition people are going to the market and looking to acquire U.S. content.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we have 20 meetings with foreign buyers for VOD content at MIP coming up in April.
Wow. So you think this is something that's like it's in the midst, it's new. It's in the midst, like within the next 12 months, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this.
I think, we're going to see more and more streamers looking for content. At foreign markets, I do believe.
I asked this to most filmmakers, and knowing that you guys started out as filmmakers, and, I heard that you guys are getting ready to do a new feature. And I usually ask people, like, if I showed up on your door and gave you, $75,000 to do a feature, what kind of feature would you do? You guys, distribute all kinds of these features. So what kind of movie are you making?
A crime thriller.
Okay.
The most difficult movie right now to sell is a serious relationship, human story, about human struggling, and problems.
I would say the only exception to that is if you're dealing with a very specific subset or group of people. Like if you were dealing with African-American transgendered people in New Orleans, you might have an audience for that.
The problem is it's not going to be huge numbers of millions and millions.
Right.
It's very specific. And if you have a way to really reach that specific audience, yes, maybe. But most people like crime thrillers.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, probably the broadest kind of, audience. Like Michael and I, we don't watch a lot of television, but occasionally we do. And we've been watching Ozark.
Oh, it's a great show.
Unbelievable. It is so good. The writing is terrific and the acting is terrific. There's quite a bit of violence in it, but not a lot. There's not a lot of explicit sex in it.
No,
right?
Not
but
at
it's
all.
so exciting, and just because the writing is so good.
Yeah.
So people have to really focus on learning how to tell a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
And use really good writing, and you can really grab people with that. I mean, we're on the edge of our chair, half the night, and we're exhausted when we're done watching it. And so it's about good writing and telling a good story. A lot of people, because they've been shut up for a year, they're tired of the situation. They're tired of the people that they're living with. They want to be entertained.
Right.
And I think that's going to probably, go on for another 6 months or so. Maybe by next year, people will be more interested in relationship dramas again or something. But, I think right now people want escapism. They want stuff that's going to, really grab them.
Right.
And, I just think slow dialogue-driven movies are not, right now.
Will you guys look for to attach name talent for this, or will you keep it?
We are going to look for at least one good name.
How important do you think that is in today's age?
I think if you are going to spend more than, say, $50,000 to $75,000, that you need to consider that.
Yeah.
And it might be your primary expense. I mean, we have lived in LA long enough that we still can fairly easily get access to cheap locations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we know a lot of people, so I think we can, get access to very reasonably priced talent, good actors. Obviously in LA, there's a big pool of talented actors that are looking for work. And, so I think that we can keep our budget, really low. And I really love that producing aspect of it, trying to find ways, to keep the costs, really low. And again, it's not about spending a lot of money on all of that stuff if you have a great story.
Right.
So, you need a really great story. And that's the most important thing, I think, right now. I think horror also does what, is well. And it doesn't have to be like bloody, gory horror, like Saw. It doesn't have to be that kind of horror. It could be just scary stuff, but genre films, I think, always, can do well. I think comedy is very, very difficult. I think the most difficult of anything to pull off. You better have some talent that's really, really funny.
Yep. Yeah. Good actors.
We see a lot of people attempt comedies, and it just is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I will leave comedy to, people that are really experienced with comedy. And also I still think, docs, the right kind of docs, have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It's not a good time to do social issue docs.
Oh, okay.
We saw a lot of those turned down by Amazon before. They don't want anything about COVID. They don't want anything about police. They really don't want highly politicized social issue content right now.
Right.
They don't want it. Nobody wants it. And it's and it's unfortunate because there are a lot of good stories that should be told about it, but I just think there needs to be some space.
Yeah.
And then those stories can get told.
Would you folks prefer to see interviews like this broken up into shorter clips by topic, or do you like the full, hour-long versions? Let me know in the comments. But whatever you do, keep making movies.